When 17-year-old Marcus stood up to 3 bullies terrorizing a quiet girl. At school, he had no idea her father was the president of the local Hells Angels. Chapter. The next morning, he looked out his classroom window to see dozens of roaring Harley-Davidsons filling the school parking lot, their leather-clad riders dismounting like an army ready for war. But were they there to thank the brave teenager who protected one of their own, or to teach him that some fights come with consequences he never saw coming? The morning bell at Jefferson High cuts through the October air like a rusty blade, its metallic echo bouncing off brick walls still damp from last night's rain. 17-year-old Marcus Thompson pushes through the heavy glass doors, his worn Converse sneakers squeaking against polished linoleum that smells of industrial cleaner and teenage desperation. The hallways pulse with that familiar chaos of slamming lockers, scattered conversations, and the underlying current of anxiety that runs through every high school like an electrical wire waiting to spark. Marcus slides into his second period algebra seat by the window, the plastic chair cold against his back through his thin hoodie. Outside the parking lot stretches gray and empty except for a few beat-up Honda Civics and the yellow school buses idling with their diesel engines rumbling like sleeping giants. He's always been the kind of kid who notices things others miss. The way dust mows dance in shafts of autumn sunlight. The particular sound his mechanical pencil makes, scratching equations across notebook paper. The shade of loneliness that colors certain students' shoulders as they navigate the halls alone. His grandmother Rosa always said he had watchful eyes, a gift inherited from his father, David, who died in Afghanistan when Marcus was 12. The Purple Heart medal stays wrapped in tissue paper in Marcus's desk drawer at home, right next to a faded photo of his dad in desert camouflage, grinning beside a Humvee with his arm around a fellow soldier. Rosa tells stories about David's courage, how he'd step between playground bullies and smaller kids, how he believed that standing up for others was what separated good people from everyone else. "Mijo," she'd whisper, while braiding his hair before school. "Your papa had a heart too big for his chest, and you got the same one beating in yours. But watching doesn't prepare you for action, and inherited courage feels different when your pulse is hammering in your throat." Marcus traces circles on his desk with his finger, thinking about the math test next period, about whether he remembered to pack his lunch, about the college applications sitting unfinished on his bedroom desk. Through the window, a red-tailed hawk circles over the football field, riding invisible currents with wings spread wide against the cloudy sky. His father used to point out hawks during their weekend hikes in the mountains, explaining how they could spot prey from impossible distances, how patience and observation were their greatest weapons. The intercom crackles to life with Principal Johnson's tired voice announcing the lunch menu, but Marcus barely hears it. He's watching that hawk, thinking about his father's stories, feeling the weight of the Purple Heart he carries in his backpack like a talisman. When the classroom door swings open and Mrs. Peterson walks in, carrying a stack of graded tests, the smell of her coffee mingles with chalk dust and the faint perfume of the girl sitting 2 rows over, creating that particular cocktail of scents that will forever mean junior year, second period. The moment before everything changed. 20 minutes later, the bell releases them into the hallway like water through a broken dam, and Marcus flows with the current of backpacks and conversations, until he sees them by locker 247. 3 seniors forming a tight semicircle around someone smaller, their voices carrying that particular edge that makes his stomach clench. Derek Russo stands in the center, his thick neck red above his Letterman jacket, cigarette smoke clinging to his clothes like a warning. Beside him, Tyler and Jake flank their target with the practiced cruelty of predators who found their rhythm. The girl trapped between them and the lockers is Sarah Chen, ink-smudged hands clutching a worn copy of The Hobbit against her chest like a shield. Marcus Knows her from art class where she sits in the back corner creating intricate fantasy landscapes in watercolor. Her dark hair falling like a curtain between her and the world. She wears oversized sweaters that smell faintly of turpentine and reads during lunch. Instead of talking, her silence so complete it seems to have weight. Freak. Derek's voice cuts through the hallway noise sharp and deliberate. Your whole family's nothing but criminals and losers. Sarah's shoulders draw inward, her glasses slipping down her nose as she stares at the floor. But Marcus sees her hands trembling where they grip her book. Fire ignites in his rib cage. The same feeling he gets when he sees hawks circling wounded prey. When his grandmother tells stories about his father's courage, when he holds that purple heart and wonders what it means to earn it. Leave her alone. The words escape before he can think them through, his voice cracking slightly as he steps between Sarah and her tormentors. The hallway seems to pause, conversations fading as students sense the shift in energy, the way animals know when lightning is about to strike. Derek turns those flat mean eyes on Marcus, a smile spreading across his face like oil on water. Well, Marcus Thompson thinks he's a hero. Derek's breath smells like energy drinks and morning cigarettes as he moves closer, invading space with the confidence of someone who's never faced real consequences. You don't know what you're getting into, little boy. But Marcus thinks of his father's photograph, of Rose's stories about courage being a choice made in small moments, of the purple heart wrapped in tissue paper and all the weight it carries. His hands shake, but his voice holds steady. I said, leave her alone. The punch comes fast, Derek's fist connecting with Marcus's jaw in a sharp crack that echoes off locker doors. The taste of copper fills his mouth as he staggers backward, his vision blurring for a moment before clearing to reveal Sarah's wide, frightened eyes behind her glasses. Other students scatter like startled birds, their footsteps echoing down empty corridors as teachers' voices call from distant classrooms. Sarah helps Marcus to his feet, her art-stained fingertips surprisingly strong as they steady him against the lockers. You didn't have to do that, she whispers. But her voice carries something deeper than gratitude, recognition, maybe, or surprise that someone finally saw her as worth defending. During the final passing period, she finds him by his locker, holding ice against his swelling jaw, and tells him what he doesn't know. What makes Derek's cruelty cut deeper than typical teenage meanness? My father rides with the Hells Angels, she says quietly, her words barely audible above the hallway noise. The Desert Riders chapter. Derek thinks that makes me fair game, like I chose my family, like kindness and cruelty get passed down with your last name. Her voice breaks slightly as she explains months of harassment, of being cornered in empty hallways, of teachers who look the other way because sometimes it's easier to ignore problems than solve them. Marcus touches the tender spot on his jaw and thinks about inheritance, purple hearts and watchful eyes, courage, and the distinct form of loneliness that comes from being different. Outside, storm clouds gather over the parking lot, promising rain that will wash the day clean and leave everything smelling like wet asphalt and new possibilities. The next morning arrives gray and drizzling, the kind of weather that makes the world feel wrapped in gauze. Muffled and uncertain, Marcus walks toward Jefferson High with his hood pulled up, rain pattering against the fabric like nervous fingers tapping a desk. His jaw still aches from yesterday's punch, a purple bruise blooming along his cheekbone that Rosa fussed over at breakfast, pressing a bag of frozen peas against his face while muttering Spanish prayers under her breath. The taste of her café con leche still lingers on his tongue, sweet and bitter and comforting in the way only grandmother's coffee can be. But as he approaches the school's front steps, a sound cuts through the morning air that makes his blood freeze in his veins. The deep throaty roar of motorcycle engines. Not one or two, but dozens growing louder like approaching thunder. The rumble starts low and distant, then builds into something that seems to shake the very ground beneath his feet. A mechanical heartbeat that drowns out everything else. Car horns, morning, traffic, even his own rapid breathing. Marcus stops walking, rain dripping from his hood as he stares at the school parking lot, transforming before his eyes. Motorcycle after motorcycle pulls through the entrance gates, chrome gleaming despite the overcast sky. There, riders moving with the fluid grace of people who've learned to be comfortable with power and danger. The Hells Angels. Patches are unmistakable death's heads, and winged skulls adorning leather vests, worn by men and women whose very presence seems to alter the air pressure, making the morning feel electric and charged. He counts them as they arrive. 30, 40, maybe 50. Harley-Davidsons arranged in perfect formation, like an army that's come not for conquest, but for something far more personal. Their engines cut off in synchronized silence, and suddenly, the only sounds are raindrops hitting leather and the distant murmur of students gathering at classroom windows, their faces pressed against glass like spectators at an aquarium. Inside the building, Marcus slides into his second period seat with hands that won't stop trembling, his classmates whispering and pointing, while Mrs. Peterson nervously shuffles through her lesson plans. Through the rain-streaked window, he watches the riders dismount with practiced efficiency. Their movements, coordinated in ways that speak of shared experience and unbreakable bonds. Steam rises from hot motorcycle engines, meeting cool morning air, creating ghostly wisps that curl around leather boots and denim-clad legs. Principal Johnson's voice crackles over the intercom, tight with barely controlled panic. All students are to remain in their classrooms until further notice. Teachers, please keep your doors locked and continue with normal instruction. But nothing about this morning feels normal, and Marcus can't look away from the window as more details come into focus. The intricate tattoos covering muscular arms, the careful way they position their bikes, the absolute stillness in their posture that suggests coiled energy waiting for the right moment to spring. In the center of the group stands a massive man with salt and pepper hair and arms covered in ink that tells stories Marcus can't read from this distance. He removes his helmet with deliberate slowness, and even through the rain and glass, Marcus recognizes him immediately from a newspaper photo Sarah once showed him during art class. Her father, James Chen, president of the Desert Writers chapter, the same man who braids her hair before school and helps with math homework at their kitchen table, now standing in a high school parking lot, surrounded by his brotherhood like a general surveying a battlefield. The intercom crackles again, and this time, it's not Principal Johnson's voice, but a secretary's, nervous and uncertain, cutting through the classroom silence. Like a blade. Marcus Thompson, please report to the main office immediately. The walk down empty hallways feels like moving through a dream. Marcus's sneakers squeaking against polished linoleum, while outside, the rhythmic pulse of machinery provides a soundtrack that seems to echo from his chest. Emergency. Lights cast everything in harsh shadows, and the usual chaos of passing periods has been replaced by an eerie quiet, broken only by the distant whispers of students peering through classroom door windows, and the soft buzz of fluorescent bulbs overhead. The main office smells like coffee and copy paper, and the particular brand of anxiety that comes from authority figures trying to maintain control in unprecedented situations. Mrs. Rodriguez, the secretary, gestures toward Principal Johnson's door with a hand that trembles slightly, her usual warm smile replaced by something tight and worried. Through the glass partition, Marcus can see figures moving inside, shadows that seem too large and substantial for the familiar space where he's received detention slips and academic awards. James Chen is waiting when Marcus enters, but he's not the fearsome biker Marcus expected from newspaper headlines and Sarah's whispered stories. Instead, he sees a father whose eyes hold the specific type of gratitude that comes from knowing someone protected your Child, when you couldn't be there. The man's leather vest hangs open over a simple black t-shirt. His salt and pepper hair pulled back in a ponytail that reveals laugh lines around his eyes, and a face weathered by years of sun and wind and difficult choices. Sarah told me what you did, James says, his voice growly from years of shouting over engine noise, but surprisingly gentle, like distant thunder that promises rain instead of destruction. His weathered palms remain clasped in front of him, respectful of the space between them, while his dark eyes, Sarah's eyes, study Marcus with the intensity of someone who's learned to read people quickly and accurately. Principal Johnson stands behind his desk like a man trying to maintain dignity while his carefully ordered world tilts on its axis, his tie slightly crooked and sweat beading on his forehead despite the morning chill. Through the office windows, the other riders remain motionless beside their bikes. Men and women who've lived hard lives and made difficult choices, but who understand something fundamental about family and protection that goes deeper than leather and chrome and the fear they inspire in others. In our world, loyalty means everything, James continues, extending his hand toward Marcus with the same careful deliberation he showed removing his helmet. You showed loyalty to my daughter when she needed it most, when no one else would step up. That means something to us. Marcus takes the offered hand, feeling the strength of work-roughened hands and fingers that have gripped motorcycle handlebars through thousands of miles of highway, have built engines from scattered parts, have braided a daughter's hair with the same tenderness they've shown in comforting brothers who've fallen on hard roads. The handshake lasts longer than politeness requires, and in that moment, Marcus understands that he's being measured not just as a teenage boy who threw a punch, but as someone being welcomed into a circle of protection that extends far beyond blood relations. We wanted to make sure everyone here knows that Sarah Chen has people who care about her, James says, his voice carrying the weight of absolute certainty that anyone who hurts her will answer to more than just her father. As if summoned by his words, the engines outside roar to life in perfect synchronization. 50 Harleys creating a sound that Marcus will carry in his memory forever, not as a threat, but as a promise. The rumble builds and holds a mechanical anthem that speaks of brotherhood and loyalty and the chosen family that forms when blood relations fail you. Through the window, Marcus sees Sarah from her second floor classroom window, her paint-stained fingers pressed against the glass, overlooking the parking lot, tears streaming down her face as she watches her two worlds, the quiet girl who reads fantasy novels and the president's daughter protected by a brotherhood, bound by something stronger than law or convention, finally impossibly come together. The engines cut off as suddenly as they started, leaving only the sound of rain and the distant whisper of tires on wet asphalt as the desert riders disappear into the gray morning, their message delivered with the precision and impact of people who understand that sometimes the most powerful lessons about courage and protection come from the most unexpected teachers.